Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. For Fender Friday this week, let's check out the series of Fenders that got me into reviewing Fenders. This is one from the 2019 Fender Rarities series. So if you've been watching the show for a while, back in like late 2019, early 2020, I was just doing Fender after Fender after Fender after Fender because I really kind of got into that kick of loving these things, and it was because of this Rarities series. And while I have reviewed a few of them, this was one of my favorite of the series that I picked up because a fan of the show sent me a link to it on Reverb, and I was like, yeah, that one's the right one to document. This is the Blue Cloud version. So essentially what the whole Rarities series is they wanted to create boutique level USA Fenders that had like fancy pickups, some fancy tops to them. It really was not that popular of a series. I was always questioning, why is nobody buying these things? I mean, the initial retail price on all of them was $2,500. And what got me into reviewing these things is I was able to pick a couple of them up pretty cheap on the used market. So same story with this one, but now let's learn about the rest of the Rarities series. So they were done up in 2019, right after the 2018 Parallel Universe Volume 1. Fender USA wanted something fun to do while Fender Mexico was doing the original alternate reality series in 2019. So this is what they created. They had 3 interesting Teles, 5 stellar Strats, and 1 beautiful bass. So starting in April, we had the Quilt Top Stratocaster, which I have reviewed. You can check that out right here. In May, we had the Red Top Tele, which is a pretty cool one if you find a nice one. Still haven't found the right one to document on that yet. In June, we had the Koa Top Strat. It had some interesting gold foil vibe pickups on it. The one we're talking about today is the July offering, the Blue Cloud Telecaster. August featured the Flame Maple Top Stratocaster, which I've also reviewed. September, the very kind of ugly chambered Tele, but the unique thing about that is instead of like a maple veneer or something thin, it was a full-on top. I definitely suggest checking out that review and demo. That guitar surprised me. In October, there was a Flame Ash Top Stratocaster in kind of a red burst finish. November, we had the same thing, but within a bass format. And then December, one of the more interesting ones is an F-Hold Stratocaster with a rosewood neck and a flame top. Whole bunch of stuff going on there. So each of those guitars at the time of release at NAMM, because I was documenting guitars back then, the rep at the show said that they were going to make approximately 400 of each of these. Now, whether they actually ended up making all that or not, we will never know for sure. They said it was all going to come down to demand. So what makes this thing interesting is obviously we have a quilty maple top on this Telecaster, and it's blue. And this one looks fantastic. Not all of them are quite as nice as this, but this is kind of what the stock photo looked like. So I was always looking for one very similar to that. I mean, it's not a huge top by any means. Not like that half and half Telecaster we were just talking about, but you also get black binding on this, and that looks so good in contrast to the light ash body. Now, some of these you can find that have better wood grain than this. Like, I like the really wavy ash or circular patterns, whereas this one's more straight. But then the black binding plays really well with the black pick guard and the dark blue finish. This is just one of my favorite looking ones. Now, having the light back with the aged neck, I mean, maybe I would have did that differently, but this is a full-on gloss fretboard. But yet the back of the neck is satin, which might seem strange to some people, but that's exactly how I like my Telecasters, so it works for me. And what also makes this one cool is it has custom shop pickups in here, at least one of them, but we'll dive into all those nitty-gritty specs on the workbench. So as far as the cases, nothing too fancy. I mean, they're nice, beautiful golden interiors right here. And if I remember correctly, we do get a COA in our little zippered pouch here. Little red booklet, and then right here. I mean, nothing too fancy, just Fender COA. Tells you all your serial number. It's nothing specific to the Rarities series. So if you don't document these things, sometimes things will be lost to time, like the name of the series. So as a brief recap, they were really fancy Fender guitars. Generally, I guess Fender guys don't like this, but being from the Gibson realm of things, I love this series. So hey, Fender, if you got nothing else from this series, know that that's what made me start to review a lot more Fenders. All right, let's go ahead and throw this one on the workbench to take a look at its individual parts and specs, and then we will get to that tone sample. Inside the Blue Cloud Telecaster, let's learn about our pickups now. So, I told you these were custom shop pickups, right? And that's true for our bridge pickup here. This is the Custom Shop 51 No-Caster bridge. Now, as far as markings on the pickups, you don't have too much, but you can see the special way that they wind these to know that that's custom shop. It looks like a brass back plate, and here's what that looks like in here. You can see the ash body, and right here you can see just how thick the maple top is. So definitely a lot thicker than just a veneer. And then you can see the ash body right here in our barcode. And then our neck pickup here is their Pure Vintage 64 pickup. Again, no markings there, but that one secures to the body using those 2 screws, and then you have these rubber grommets. They're pretty much the same thing as a spring. They just help you set your height adjustment. And then inside here we have another barcode that makes it a 60s Tele with black binding and ash body. As far as these pickups within the circuit, I get 5.97 k ohms in our bridge position. Our neck reads 6.86, and then middle position for fun, 3.24 k ohms. Then if you're curious what this route is for, it's to help you get your wires into this cavity. That all gets covered over by your pickguard though, so you don't normally see that. And then they route this section out so it's easier to get to your truss rod. They even have a little cutout right there on the pickguard to help you get to your truss rod without having to necessarily take that off. If you have that nice L bracket tool to get in there anyways, otherwise you might have to take off the pickguard. But if you need to adjust your neck pickup, you have to take off your pickguard. That's the one thing I kind of like about Fender Japan guitars. Sometimes they'll have a little hole right here, and when I first saw that, I was confused. However, when I realized it's so you can put a screwdriver down in there to adjust the height of your pickup without having to remove everything, I thought that was kind of cool. Check that out in like the Miyavi Telecaster. But this particular pickguard, it's pretty scratched up right here. It's definitely been used. But you might have missed that it's actually 3-ply. So you got black on the back and top, and then a middle white layer. So that makes it look pretty fancy. As far as the saddles go, you've got the compensated brass saddles. But that bridge just secures to the body using 4 screws, and this is a string-through style Tele. There is no top load option here. As far as our switching, just a regular pilgrim style hat right here, master volume, master tone, and it's all wired up kind of like a custom shop too. They have that nice cloth wiring that not all Fender USAs get. So here you can see your toggle and your different pots with the large capacitor. Looks like these are 250K pots. And here's what's in that cavity. Awesome top on this one. Really like how active this quilt top is. I mean, you can really see it moving here on the workbench. That's why I try to take many different lighting angles from outside to inside with different lights to really give you guys the full aspect of these things. I always thought this was more of like an ocean rather than blue cloud, but hey, maybe they went for the whole cloud thing because the back of the ash body is pretty light colored. So kind of whitish cloud-like. I think I would have liked it if they just would have did like a TV white stain on the back and then finished it over in a gloss. Then it'd be more cloudy to me. Body dimensions, just for fun, about 1.78 inches thick. All right, let's move on from that ash body maple top to a maple neck, straight up maple. There is no fretboard, the neck is the fretboard, but we're rocking 21 vintage tall frets with a 9.5-inch radius, so somewhere between modern and truly vintage, and your regular 25.5-inch scale length on a Tele, as demonstrated perfectly there. But as I was talking about earlier, this is a gloss fretboard, and whenever Fender glosses them, most times they get the gloss like running up and over the frets too. That's just par for the course. And they age the lacquer, but what I really like is our black acrylic inlays on this one. Like some of them have a lot of color. It's like that Texas tea color, especially on that one. There's a lot of figuring on here. I mean, it might look like bubbling lacquer, but no. This is basically just that white perloid material, except for now it's a black color. So it gives you a lot of cool different hues and figurings within it. So I'm a fan of that. I measure a nut width of 1.65 inches. That increases to 2.03 by the 12th. With the first fret neck depth of 0.85, that increases to 0.99 by the 12th, so it kind of chunks up. Fender's official documentation calls this one a 60C neck shape. It almost has like a U-shapedness to it, where it really fills your hand. So it's nice and rounded, but it's not overly chunky, but you definitely feel that back of the neck. Let's check that out on the contour gauge. Here's what that neck profile looks like at the 1st and 12th fret. You can kind of see how I was saying it's almost U-shaped right here. It's a nice deep feeling neck. Moving on to our headstock, we can see the capping off of the truss rod route, done up in walnut, and you have staggered regular tuners. So what the staggering means is, you see how this one's so tiny right here? The thickness of the wood is the same, it's just the post is actually shorter on these tuners. That helps you line up with the nut better. Then we have a single string tree and the Fender decal. If you want to know why it looks kind of sloppy and has all that decal stuff around it, that's just how Fenders are. I had somebody mention that a couple episodes ago, so I thought I would explain that. Now we move on over to the backside. Not too much to talk about here. We've got our neck plate, which reads Limited Edition Corona, California, with our serial number right there, LE08598. And the ash body has a lot of nice vertical wood grain going on here. And you can see our string-through ferrules right here located in the body. You've got your barrel-style output jack on the side, and your regular strap buttons. Despite not being a super vintage spec'd out Tele as far as, have maple top and binding on the front, this surprisingly does not have a tummy cut or anything, so it's traditional in that aspect. And what's kind of cool about this gloss finish, if you get it in the light just right, you can see that the finish is actually sinking into the pores of the wood. That gives it an interesting look. However, you don't necessarily feel that, it just feels like a straight up gloss finish. But then when you move on to the neck, I forget what Fender calls it. I believe it's ultra satin, something like that. It's got that nice smooth feel to it, so you're not going to stick to the neck, so it's like satin in that aspect, but yet it still has like a semi-gloss feel to it. I've always been a fan of how Fender does that on these finishes, but not everybody likes the super gloss on the fretboard, so this is one spec'd out perfectly to my taste, but maybe not to yours. Backside of our headstock just looks like this. No serial number there, just on the neck plate. All said and done, just a little bit more than 7.5 pounds. 7 pounds, 8.9 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this one sounds. Alright, let's go ahead and run through the tones of this one. We'll start with our neck position. If I'm being honest, not really digging the tones out of this one. I do like the middle position though. That's probably gonna sound pretty good with a little bit of distortion though. let me know all about the Blue Cloud Telecaster from the Rarities series. What are my final thoughts on this thing now that I've had it in the flesh? It's a really strange mashup of colors. I mean, we've been talking about this the whole time, but beautiful blue top with that black binding works really well. But you get this dark ambered over fretboard, and then the back of the neck is also a slightly different color from the fretboard. You can see that from right here. And then you get the body being a completely different hue. It's a colorful guitar, I'll give it that. I like this one better in stock photos than I did in person. However, most of the times you don't see it from the side or anything like that, so you just see this beautiful blue Tele. So if you like it for this, yeah, you're going to like the guitar. As far as the pickups, I don't know. Maybe I need to set my amp a little bit differently, but this was one of my least favorite Telecasters I've demoed in a while. These pickups were just not quite for me, but that doesn't mean that it won't be for you. I know I really like the Pure Vintage 65 Jazzmaster pickups. Pretty much anything from the 64 year, that's what I'm all about. I mean, as far as the playability of the instrument goes, yeah, it's perfectly fine. It's actually a chunkier neck than I was expecting from their 60C shape that they were talking about. I mean, that's very close to U-shapedness right here. Not exactly, but very close to it. So if you like a slightly bigger Tele neck like I do, you will enjoy this one. Would I suggest one of these at their brand new $2,500 retail price? Probably not. But on the used market, these can be a lot of fun for like around $1,800. But whenever you're within Fender territory, there's always the question of, you could also just build a parts caster of this for probably what, like $800, $900. However, it's nice to have the resale value if you can buy one of these smartly on the used market. So, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed learning about the Fender Rarities series today with me. If you're interested in being the next owner of this one, you can find it on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. Alright, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.